I give it a solid meh. Welcome to the Rotoscopers YouTube. My name is Chelsea Robson, where I talk about animated movies and really other movies that I would just like to see that happen to be coming out. And so here we are. This is Pixar's Elemental. This was the movie that, as it was coming out, I and basically everyone I talked to just thought was like, is that a sequel to Inside Out? And if you look at any of the animation from this, you really get that feeling. It just doesn't feel new. It doesn't feel exciting. It just feels like, didn't we already see this? There's going to be two different sections of this review. The first section is going to be just pure entertainment value. Is this something that I would go to again? Is this something that I would have been happy with? That kind of thing. The second part is basically the critic in me, and every time I think more about the story, what are my feelings? Okay? If you are not fine with spoilers, then you know when to cut off. All right, section 1. The story goes like this. You have a world that has 4 different types of elements that kind of rule. You have earth, wind, fire, and water. The main focus is on an immigrant family who have just moved into the town of Elemental City. And they've come in, they want to be able to start a new life here, and they get turned away at every spot. It kind of feels like a little bit of a Mary and Joseph of the Christmas Story coming into it, because she's like pregnant and they're just like, is there room for us in the inn? It's just like, what is happening? So anyway, they find a place that will accept them, and they build this little store out of this molten rock area, which it works for them because they're fire people and they tend to explode. And with that, you actually have a lot of fire people that come in over the years, and now there has been a large community of fire people that are kind of gathered around this store. They have a daughter named Ember. Her main joy and delight is to be able to help her dad in his work at this store, and all she wants to do is grow up to be just like him and take over the store. She does have a problem because she has a bit of a temper, as mentioned before. One day she lets her temper get the best of her. It causes a giant explosion, which brings in a water person from the water main. His name is Wade. Wade drips in through the water main, and he happens to be a city inspector. And the city inspector decides, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I have to issue all of these citations to you and basically shut down your dad's store. It's basically an enemies to lovers, Romeo and Juliet-ish kind of storyline from there on out. One major problem I had with this is I didn't know who the audience was supposed to be. And kind of what Pixar likes to do is they like to be able to gear it to the children, but with adult sensibilities. And I feel like this one, it was just sticking with the adult sensibilities in an animated form. I don't mind that. I am clearly an adult who enjoys this stuff, but I just feel like it's not going to be something that I think the little kids are going to enjoy. I don't think it's going to be something that they'll be really laughing at. When you look at some of the biggest Pixar films, they have a lot of humor in it. And this one, it had like a couple jokes, like 2, that I actually remembered people laughing at. So yeah, is it for kids? I've already said that this movie was basically a meh, but then I also thought, I saw this for free. If it wasn't for free and I had to pay for popcorn, $9 for a bag, $14 for the adult, $7 to $10 for a child, all that adds up, and you're looking about like $50 to $75 for this afternoon, evening at the movies, depending on how crazy you go at the concession stand. And when I consider all of that in, I would say pick another movie. This one just wasn't enough for me to value all that was spent for the time that was spent there. I also don't suppose that a lot of parents are going to be taking their kids once they know that there is a lesbian kiss in this. Now, I know that Pixar has been trying to put this more into their films, and it's kind of showed in the box office that people don't like this. I feel like by adding that, you are putting this movie into the LGBT subgenre. There is definitely an audience that wants to have that. However, the market cap for that audience is not one that can afford to pay back the $200 million that went into production for this. This is not a judgment on my part of the kissing scene itself, but it is an acknowledgement that this is what it will do. So already, I just feel like this movie is going to be a flop. One, it was a meh. I don't see very many people telling their friends to go see this because And two, for the group of people that are not interested in watching an LGBT subgenre movie, you're really cutting them out too. Is it bad that I don't like certain subgenres? I don't like horror movies. Am I a bad person? Maybe. Okay, now we are on to part 2. I feel like whoever wrote the script for this had an experience in their life that they were like, you know what? I feel like me and my spouse, we just are oil and water, or fire and water. Two totally different elements, two totally different things, and yet somehow we mix. So this is a romantic... Is it a comedy? No, not really. That wasn't really funny. But it was a romantic type movie of coming of age, romance, plus cultural combinations. I just felt like they were trying to cram so many different things into this that it felt garbled. There's definitely a prejudice against the fire people, probably because they burn stuff. But as it happens in our world, it's more just people finding like. Like finds like really likes to be amongst itself. That's why you have all these different little bubbles of people that come in. They speak the same language, they have similar backgrounds, and so they want to be around each other so that they all know what they're getting into when you see other people. I don't think it's a bad thing. As, a little girl who's growing up in an immigrant family, her family owns a small business, and actually this is where I started to really relate to this girl. I really related to her because my family owned and operated a family business my entire life up until about 2018. And I grew up with them doing that and having to deal with health inspectors and having to deal with the city coming in and threatening to shut you down. I felt triggered. I understood. I felt it deeply. As I said, I did relate to a lot of her story, but one of the main things that I didn't relate to was the fact that they really focused in on intercultural and even interracial relationships. I speak 3 different languages. I've lived in different parts of the country as well as different parts of the world. I've had probably half of my romantic relationships have been with guys that were either a different culture or even spoke other languages as well. So I can tell that the point of view that came across in this was specifically somebody from California having these issues. I have never been to a place that is more aesthetically aware than in California, specifically in LA, but also, anywhere where movies are made, obviously. And that idea, it's only there. And I'm just going to tell you right now, if you are the ones who made this, you need to get out of your bubble. This stuff doesn't exist the way you think it exists everywhere. One thing I do wish that they had with this was closed captioning, because I feel like I missed a fair bit of some backstory. And I say that it's because the parents in the story, they come from the Fireland, and the Fireland has their own language. It's a made-up language, and it's also a made-up accent that goes along with it. And so as they're talking, they're saying things in an accent that I've never heard. It's kind of made up, and it's just, I got lost. The accent tended to change between characters, and it wasn't really consistent. So I was like, I don't know what you're saying. Here are some of the major plot points that bothered me. So for one, and at first I thought this was going to be a plot point that I was going to like, but it fell flat. So the first one is when the parents first come to this new city, they are bringing with them this lantern that has like this blue flame. Scene changes, and now she's got a little baby. The blue flame is now in its own spot. And later on, they kind of talk about this flame. They actually say that it represents our traditions and who we are. And this really reminded me of the film and play Fiddler on the Roof. And I love that play. Tevye, who is the patriarch of the family in this Jewish community, he starts talking about their traditions and how they live a very peculiar way to the rest of the world and what that does for them, and saying that these traditions are what bind us together. These are the traditions that keep us whole. And I really appreciate that, having grown up in a very tradition-filled family myself. A fiddler on the roof. Sounds crazy, no? He says that it is the embodiment of what it feels like to try and just live your life, play a little tune while walking along a rooftop about to fall at any moment, because that's how the world feels. I kind of hoped that they were going to take that route with it, and I think they wanted to. But in the end, what happens is she really ends up sacrificing her love and her any type of relationship, like the life of her love, for this blue flame. Once again, spoiler, it ends up being fine. Wade the waterman comes back after having evaporated because of how much heat was he got stuck in a room. So he comes back, he drips, and now becomes whole again. And so yay, everybody can now live happily ever after. She goes away for an internship, and as they're leaving, like, they don't bring the flame back as though that's something she's taking with her. At the end of Fiddler on the Roof, there's a moment where they're leaving Anatevka and he looks back at the fiddler and kind of motions for him to follow back. The fiddler being the metaphor of bringing your traditions along with you. And she didn't do that. She does go ahead and give a sign of respect to her father, but she doesn't take anything with her. And so that's just something I felt like was a miss with this. As I mentioned before, the movie wanted to portray the life of like blending two cultures in a relationship. And that is a difficult thing, but it just wasn't a solid choice to actually make them fire and water, because in the metaphor, you don't go that deep. And it's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. Fire and water don't really mix that well. But you have this scene where she has a problem with her temper. And so anytime something happens that it makes her a little bit uneasy, she kind of blows off the handle and blows up in front of everybody. And then like you see her cause a huge explosion, which is the catalyst for the whole story to come. Now there's a lot of water coming into her pipes and everything. And so that's where it all starts. So there's a moment where she just gets so upset because as a child, she was not allowed, any fire people were not allowed to go in to see this flower that was underground in a very enclosed space with a lot of people kind of in a railroad situation. She gets mad that it's her kind that isn't allowed in this tube, but it's like, is it really smart though? Really? Logic just came to my mind and I was like, I don't feel bad for you. Maybe you could go alone, which is what she ended up doing. Yeah, just not safe. But her temper was never portrayed as a bad thing, which was something that I didn't like either. It ended up being portrayed as the thing that was actually teaching her that she wasn't following her truth. And I don't think it's a good message to say it's okay that you're mad and you fly off the handle and you yell and you explode and you destroy things. It's okay because you're not living your truth, and therefore, what comes with it is what comes with it. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Self-actualization is her only goal. And it just, with Wade, you didn't respect him, because no matter what she did, how many times she flew off the handle, treated him really badly, yelled at him, he was just always there like, no, I'm going to be here to help you, which one, isn't realistic. And two, you just show me that you don't have a lot of self-respect, because people treat you the way you expect to be treated. And if you really expect to be treated like garbage, then there you go. Nothing about her ever needs to change because she is amazing, and he just has to help her see that. I don't like it. I don't like it. Like, honestly, the more I think about the elements of this story, and I don't mean characters, I mean the actual plot points, I'm just like, I don't agree. I don't agree. So all that to be said, like, meh. Have you seen it? Are you going to see it? Let me know in the comments below. Go ahead and throw your flames. It's fine. If you've watched some of my last reviews, then you would know that I wrote a book. Ah! Actually, it's a journal. It's called My Bucket List, 100 Dreams for God to Guide Me. You're able to put in your top 100 dreams, as well as it has pages for planning, and then it asks the question, how did God guide me on that one? And then also, this journal I created, obviously I had a lot of fun doing these things. Once again, hardcover, it's amazing. And inside you have space for 3 years of entries. So as you circle around every year, you can come back and you think, oh, look what I was doing on this day in history last year. It's great. You should check it out. Links below.